Day after day, we open the doors of perception, finding more and more of the same deception. Armed with minds to unlock the hidden answers, interested in research, journalistic freelance. Having left behind any more specific proposition, opened eyes perceiving through direct observation. Having left the realm of fairy tales and fiction, sharpen beaks, pointing the right direction. Making use of the tools we have at hand to fight against ignorance across our land. Smashing absurdity with blue branches, uncovering idiocy and distributing pink branches. Separating the wheat from the chaff. Get tragedies form patterns and make us yawn. Badly acting human shields that randomly spawn. Making use of the tools we have at hand. Separating the wheat from the chaff. We do in fact call the S on your fabricated anecdotes. Moving on without you, not even leaving notes. Activating infinite potential, lying fallow. People waking up, speaking what they know.
Alright, we are live 7/10/2024, eve of the anniversary of Skylab falling to Earth. 7/11. And I believe it was like 77 tons. Might want to, quote, fact check me on that fake fact. 7/11 is also the anniversary date of Richard Branson launching up into space in 2021, getting that overjaw effect on with all of his friends. That was Penguinotti, Matty Moses, PGA, produced by MVP, the Hardware Vandal, and Symbia, the Terra Incognita. This is a Infinite Plane Radio track you can hear if you go to the 24/7 live stream. I'm making an effort to promote that. I need to turn it back on, to be honest. The 24-hour stream. Let's see who's in chat here. Is anyone in support of this idea? A 24/7 stream, and I'll program the bots in order to send people to Gilded and Discord. Robbie C. Williamson says, nice track. Copaesthetic joined us. Elephant Tusk says, another day in the IPS Matrix. P. Trippa, I have this song cranked in my car and it sounds so freaking good. Yay, breakaway civilization. Yeah, that is what we're doing here. I coined the term space steading. Seasteading. You get all your friends, you get boats, and you kind of just create your own civilization in the international uncharted waters, no rules, that kind of thing. Kind of a anarchist paradise. And similarly, I suggested space steading would make sense. You just start having your independent little space stations, and you aggregate around like the rings of Saturn, and eventually you just build out your infrastructure. But what we're doing here is very similar. We are aggregating outside of the MSM paradigm, more and more of us, and we are in many ways like seasteaders. We're not breathing their air. We are in uncharted waters, while the rest are submerged within their oceans of irrelevance. I used to say sea of irrelevance. I got that from Huxley. But it's an ocean. By the way, we were live a little bit earlier. We were yelling and fighting about the ISS. Alleged ISS. Some people believe they have seen the Millennium Falcon. Others have seen the Starship Enterprise. And others maintain it's merely a light. And we're just trying to decide, well, what is it? What can we rule out? And we have an entire Discord thread, a room set up for this. So just to announce it, so we don't have to spend time on it here, between July 20th and July 23rd, we are organizing the largest number of observers we can to catch the ISS on one particular pass, on one of its 15.5 orbits it does per day. The LISS, the International Fake Station, the International Pool Station, as Truman B. 3000 says. But my objective is this. The reason why people believe it isn't because of their crappy CGI production. And it's not because of the video they show us from space, because that's obviously all computer generated. Why do people believe it? Mostly it's hearsay. There's this consensus, this unofficial consensus that has been recognized that, well, a lot of people have seen something, so it must be there. We need to get more precise. And we have to rule out certain categories of observations or alleged sightings. For example, mere CSA. We need video now. Bottom line, we need video for the entirety of the length during which it was supposed to be visible, and it must correspond to the tracking website. If you don't have the tracking data, we can't use your transit. And I think another important one here, because we're talking about standards of evidence, no solar transits, no lunar transits, because those rule out eyewitnesses. And we're going to determine, whether or not it's even feasible to posit the existence of a NASA plane or some secret craft faking it. Because some will say, I don't believe in the ISS, but something's there, so there's something faking like the ISS. And I'm saying that the ISS is not even fakeable. It's either real or it's not. Because for any craft to meet all of the required bus stops on its route, it must be going 17,000 miles per hour. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to track it. You wouldn't be able to go outside and say, well, it's going to be above here at this time. No, that presupposes that on this 25,000 mile trek, it is going the speed they say. And 17,000 miles per hour is beyond the capacity of any human craft within Earth's atmosphere. So we can rule out that possibility, but I want to get more precise about what claims are acceptable, and then we'll analyze those. And if we're left with videos that coincidentally seem to show planes that align with the tracking, or perhaps even something unexplainable, a fast-moving light that's way higher than a regular plane. I mean, I don't know. I'm open to seeing a space station, and maybe I'll see Chris Hetfield up there, swinging his legs, sitting on the solar array, playing his guitar, singing some David Bowie Space Oddity, ground control to Major Tom. He waves back at me. Supposedly you can see that. There's actually an account of an astronomer who in his backyard photographed the ISS, and he said he could see the astronauts. He even saw, I believe he even saw one of them wink. Here we go. They didn't just wave. Backyard astronomer captures impressive photo of the ISS. But there's one where they literally have this little diagram and they show you, here's one of the astronauts on a spacewalk. It's like, come on. Man in backyard snaps thrilling image of space station. Anyway, we're going to deal with this later. I don't want to spend all my time on it. But we do want to just let you know that if you're on Team ISS or not, if you're on team maybe it's up there, maybe it's not, if you're in any way ambiguous, then you might want to participate. 7/10, today's 7/10/2024. I figured, well, let's give it a couple of weeks for everyone to gather. So let's just wait the third week is what we said. So 7/20 to 7/23 would be my ideal. That's a pretty good window. 3 days. We'll have a lot of people planning and we'll all coordinate in advance and accept a standard of evidence that we're all going to adhere to. But I think it'll be eye-opening. Elephant Tusk says, IPS should write a series of books, choose your own PSYOP adventure. Just ask ChatGPT. Just copy and paste that prompt, and then give me the file and I'll publish it. It's almost that easy. But anyway, I think that there are a few subjects that we have, like I have ISS fatigue, I have chemtrail fatigue, I have Mandela effect headaches. And if you're experiencing any of these, then you should be pleased to know that we're using IPR deep dives to eradicate every single one of these in order, as we said we would. These are dominoes. These are guardrails. These are truth or orthodoxies worth shooting down. So let's shoot down the fake ISS. Let's bring it down in the minds of the believers. Then we'll go after the Mandelas. Or no, we'll do the... We have a few other things. We'll do chemtrails, and then we'll go after the Mandela effects. We'll give them a little bit more time. This is where it's at says there's no video evidence that they ever built anything in space. Yeah, they built the equivalent of the pyramids. The ISS is one of the most impressive structures built by mankind, and yet there's no video. We have an animated jiffy where you can see it being built. It's like a diagram of how it was built, how they put it together. But no, you don't see anything. You don't see any footage of it. Ollie Goering says, I want to see how MAGA and normies react when Kamala becomes president. I'm already ready. I'm prepared for Kamala because I've been watching Netflix. And Netflix has already given me enough predictive programming to be prepared for President Kamala. I'll be the least surprised. Buzzing Fret said, can we bring the main Mandela effect proponent on? I'm not sure. I mean, I heard somewhere he wants to punch me. He calls me the God blocker. I'm also the AI god blocker. I haven't gone after any of like the mainstream gods, but I blocked a few gods apparently. But yes, I'm the Mandela effect god blocker, preventing them from having the types of changes that they need to live their best lives. I'm in the way. My non-belief. My non-belief is so strong it pretty much cancels their entire religion. So no, he's not going to want to talk to me. But we'll find someone close. Or we'll just interview a bunch of random people. And maybe, if it comes to it, and I'm willing to do this, I am willing to schedule interviews with someone and maybe even provide a list of questions in advance and possibly even pay them if it's part of a story like this. Lord Laney says, I was listening to the earlier show, should have asked why all the astronauts are not so Freemasons. Yeah, they're all Freemasons. And even weirder, I recently learned that Buzz Aldrin received the Holy Communion, the wine and the Eucharist, on the surface of the moon on Apollo 11. So take that, Candace Owens, calling NASA a bunch of secret Satanists. No, they're actually secret Catholics. But it's even deeper than that, because that's just the exoteric. Jack Parsons was not a, quote, Satanist. They practiced what's called the Gnostic Catholic Mass, more of an esoteric version of mainstream Catholicism. So it's kind of, it's kind of interesting how she's calling NASA satanic, and she's got her cross behind her, and she recently converted to Catholic, and she holds that up. I'm a Catholic now, and NASA is science, and science is satanic. Meanwhile, the guy who walked on the moon was literally practicing Catholicism on the surface. Or on the stage, depending on... Oh, by the way, tomorrow, Fly Me to the Moon comes out. In theaters only. Fly Me to the Moon. I might go see it. I'll do a review of it for sure. An unknown masterpiece by Stanley Kubrick. It's a romantic comedy. Now, Scarlett Johansson was recently in Asteroid City, and between that movie and this, there's quite a lot to discuss. I have a theory about this. Capricorn 1, Fly Me to the Moon. Why do they make jokes about the faking of the moon landing? It's because they're softening the blow for when Americans find out that we didn't go to the moon. We faked it to trick the Russians, but they're packaging it in such a way that they say, yeah, of course, we all knew. Oh yeah, my great-great-uncle knew, my great-grandfather knew. They were insiders. They knew that we had to trick the Russians, and we did it because we're America. So they're trying to maintain the achievement as something to take pride in as an American. And we can take pride in fooling the Russians. But this is a guardrail. It doesn't go all the way, because they'll get you to accept that, of course, smart people know they faked the moon landing. In fact, this was part of, what was it? Interstellar. Jonathan Nolan, wasn't it? Interstellar. Someone said it had a fake moon landing scene where they basically made the argument that they had to do it as part of a psyop. Yeah, in Interstellar, at the start of the film, the teacher said they had to fake it. I think I might even have... Oh yeah, here's an image. In Interstellar, at the start of the film, the teachers say that they teach the moon landing was faked. This allows the government to give tax money to NASA to fund the Lazarus missions without arousing suspicion that the government has anything to do with space travel. So this is the angle. They will agree that it was faked. However, they will say that space itself is still real, and there may even be a secret space program. Christopher Nolan, Interstellar 2013. I'll have to watch it. I need to go back and watch anything by the Nolans. I just everything and anything, because these are some major league metascriptors. Ollie Goering says the rumor is that Tim Ballard is now a Catholic as well. No, I think he's been accused of being a sex abuser, not a Catholic. You might have conflated the two. Somewhat understandably. I mean, not trying to knock religions, but I mean, they're all pretty much in the same boat. But Tim Ballard from, here we go, Sound of Freedom, breaking, and this is gross, something found on the victim's skirt was 100% a match for Tim Ballard's DNA. Apparently, he's used his little movie stints where he pretends to be rescuing children as an excuse to abuse the women that he takes with them undercover, who pretend to be his wife. So it goes on to say that there's a filing in court Celeste Borges is one of the women accusing Tim Ballard of sexual assault. She used to be his executive assistant. Their attorneys are saying that it's 100% a match. Gross. Anyway, there's a lot more. In fact, this is not even new. I remember when this came out, suddenly no one was talking about Sound of Freedom. Do you remember when Sound of Freedom came out? They were like, if you don't watch the movie, you're a pedivore. You're part of it. You're part of the problem. They were making everyone watch it. And I went to the theaters to go see it. And there were claims that they were putting nanobots in the drinks if you were conservatives, that they were shutting off the air conditioning, that they didn't want you to see the movie. And this was a Jim Caviezel movie. So Jim Caviezel was playing Tim Ballard. Now, Jim Caviezel played Jesus when he was 33 on Passion of the Christ, directed by Mel Gibson. They claim that on the fifth take of the Sermon on the Mount, Jim Caviezel was struck by lightning and killed. But then they brought him back to life. And resurrected, they finished the movie. Now, we have never seen this. You know, like, wow, this guy got struck by lightning, Jim Caviezel. Passion of the Christ star Jim Caviezel recalls being struck by lightning on the last shot of the movie. This just came out last year. They just told this story. And he became closer to God after the fact. Near-death experience. Today I learned Jesus actor Jim Caviezel was struck by lightning. Sources tell us immediately after being struck, Caviezel said, now it's Queevezel, spell it with a Q, Jesus H. Christ. He literally said that. And again, he's 33, he dies, he comes back to life. So now I'm a skeptic, so I'm like, okay, PR stunt, but non-skeptics, low information believers, normies. Here's a normie. The Mask 89 says, honestly, you're making a movie about Jesus getting crucified for hours and you get struck by lightning. That is a sign. People are not all that skeptical about it. But Tim Ballard is fake. Tim Ballard might even be not who you think he is. I mean, there's some rumors that he's Paul Walker. And if you look at Paul Walker and compare him to Tim Ballard, you could probably make that case. Fly Me to the Moon, a true crime documentary, says this is where it's at. Reminds me of Wag the Dog, says P. Trippa. In the podcast somewhere, Tim Ballard was excommunicated from the Mormon Church, so he converted to Catholicism to stay relevant. That's what I heard. Okay, so he was excommunicated. That's right. And so some said, or he let people believe, and this is Tim Ballard, that he was related to some Mormon founder and that he was like deep in, here we go. They denounced him. So they publicly denounced him. Allegations were made. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints publicly denounced Ballard, stating that he had used the name of the church leader M. Russell Ballard for personal gain. Okay, so he's got the same last name as a major church leader, and he played up on that. Amazing. This movie, which I watched, did contain some valid bits of meta script, and it was all meant to bolster the claims of QAnon. It was kind of like, in fact, it was meant to be released before 2020, and if they had, it would have been a lot more impactful, because the Save the Children thing kind of died in 2021. None of the QAnoners care about the children anymore. Now they're just a JFK Jr. fan club. And any guy who looks like JFK Jr., you want to play the role. There's a new one, Edward X, to add to Tim Fuchsia, 107, negative 48. There are so many false Kennedys. If you want to be a false JFK Jr., you could literally be like a rock star. Okay, moving on. Ted Stryker says Alec Baldwin is back in the news for the shooting of what's-her-name. Oh yes, Alec Baldwin is on trial right now here, and that is a scripted event, totally fake. Rust, Western, the chapel, the shooting, the 44, Stage Union 44. The story ties in Helena Hutchins, who was 42 at the time, and from a very specific place in Ukraine, which relates to Hunt for Red October, which had Alec Baldwin. And it brings in a number of elements. We've talked about the bigger story underneath it. I relate the chapel where the shooting happened, where he shot someone with Donald Trump's birthday, in addition to Helena Hutchins. I correlate that chapel to the chapel, the White House, and to the chapel in Westworld, to the chapel in Kanye West's Dawn Day 2 event. This is a kind of a symbol. I think it represents the burning house that MLK referred to. Eddie F. says, those theories of celebrities playing different people on the world stage is just as dumb as Mandela effect and Sylvester Stallone as a woman. No, they're not. They're not, because within the realm of possibility, it is entirely feasible for somebody to wear a costume and pretend to be somebody else. We know a deep fake, and they denied it. Do you remember the guy who organized the very first Flat Earth conference, or the first conference MC? He would cry. He was known for getting emotional talking about the dome. So he'd be up there preaching dome Earth and crying, and all the flat earthers in the conference would bond, over the Bible and flat Earth. And then he would put on a disguise. He had false teeth. He would come out again as a redneck, and nobody knew who he was. And as the redneck rocket scientist, this individual would get gigs. He got on Neil deGrasse Tyson in this little skit they did, where he pretended to be super stupid, and Neil deGrasse Tyson said, well, I guess the educational systems failed us. And that went mega viral. And then he goes, takes off his disguise, and he goes back to preaching the flat earth as the ultimate truth. I mean, this guy personally told me that I believe we are in the end times. And they had this entire conference about how the sky was going to open up like a scroll, and the Lord would be looking down on us, and all the dome glass would crush the non-believers. So to say that the theory of celebrities playing different people is dumb, no, it's not dumb. It's standard. Look up Jonah Mendez, director of disguise, CIA for 27 years. She was part of this part of the CIA where they would exfiltrate people, spies, into different parts of the world and blend them in perfectly. You could have 6 people in the room, all of them look identical to Saddam Hussein. And these masks are foolproof. So this is a well-known technology. So to say that celebrities who are trained actors couldn't portray another character is actually the dumb claim. Mandela effect is dumb. Sylvester Stallone is not a woman. There are too many videos that prove otherwise. This is where it's at, says, preach Tim. Well, we have to remember that we're talking about what's within the realm of possibility. We don't make wild, extraordinary claims. I would say that our channel was one of the first that really highlighted Jonah Mendez and the use of masks on the world stage, which is all admitted. But when we're looking at this stuff, we're also looking at death fakery. And they fake deaths all the time, not just anonymous students or victims of terror attacks that nobody's ever heard of, but celebrities as well. J. Diggs says, a classic with David Bowie appearing as his neighbor. Yeah, David Bowie dies after releasing that album with the song Lazarus, and like Lazarus, he appears a few days later as his own, producer? But he shows back up in this interview where he makes this joke. He says, when Bowie died, a part of me died, and he smirks. And throughout the interview, where it looked like Bowie in a wig with some kind of a prosthetic in his mouth, he had this pixelation, like the screen was pixelized, like there was some kind of distortion. And to me, the distortion looked fake, like what NASA uses to make it look like they're in space. They distort their footage sometimes, but it looked like they were using distortion to hide how obvious the resemblance was. Joined by Pippi Langstruff, says, as if the earth can't be flat. Eddie F. says, give me an example of a known actor playing somebody else. Well, let's see. A known actor playing somebody else. What about Christian Bale playing Dick Cheney in Vice? They were born on the same day, exactly 33 years apart, by the way. But no, it's within the realm of fakeability. There's nothing to debunk. In fact, it's foolproof. The level of fakery is foolproof. The skin, the pores, the hair, the stuff. They even have hands. You can have, even your hands can be deep faked. Dinah South says, biblically illiterate people say we're in the end times. We've been there since AD 70. I'm 100% a non-believer shape agnostic. I'm agnostic about all these things. And it doesn't matter if you believe in the end times biblically or you believe in mainstream science, it still puts you in the end times. It's like, how do you escape this? You have to like reject mainstream science to not be in the end times. You throw in the religious stuff and it's just like, wow, there's no escaping this. I think end times is just a way of putting artificial constraints, like resource limiting moves by the elite. So there's only this much time, only focus on the now, don't think about long term, don't think of time as a resource. It's your greatest resource. But no, we're in the end times, there's not a lot. Eddie F says it's possible, but they take it too far. Well, the thing is too, the fact that it's possible doesn't mean it's scalable. Like for example, it's possible to fake gorillas, but can you fake gorillas at scale? No. It's possible to fake pandas, but can you fake them at scale? No. So there are things that can be locally faked, but can it be a total fake? No. But okay, every politician, every major politician, like I say presidents, we'll say, every president has body doubles. And body doubles don't even require masks. I mean, there was a Kamala Harris body double, didn't even look like her. So this is standard operating procedure. Truthers go overboard, but truthers don't know real from fake. They're just adding on additional dis, and malinformation. What we do here is we take the subtractive route, the negative route, MSM minus, which is entirely different. And if you're not appraised of all the different tricks of the trade and the special effects, then you can't have a full perspective. Like for example, if you didn't know about PSYOPs, if you're not PSYOP savvy, then you're not fully situationally aware. You can watch the news, but if you watch it without that bit of information about what psychological operations are, perception management, and how it's manipulated, then you're in the dark. Similarly, if you're not aware of the fakeability of faces, of people, and here's another point too, deep fakes. We often hear about deep fakes. They have been deep faking us with masks for at least 50 years. So who cares about the CGI deepfakes and AI, etc.? It's like that's all misdirection because we're already in a deepfaked reality. I recently heard Jack Dorsey talking about AI, and anybody that leans right or libertarian is scared of AI. They're all doomsayers about it. But here's this speech, I'm not going to play it, but we're losing our free will to algorithms. And he's talking about how at some point, look, AI won't let us know what's real anymore. I'm like, okay, look, Mr. Dorsey, we already don't know what's real. People already believe in moon landings and outer space and climate change and end times and space junk and all kinds of stuff that you might consider to be superstitions or hyperstitions. But now, here's where he's talking as though he's an auto hoaxer, where he says, don't trust, verify.
Don't trust, verify. So even this talk, everything I've said, don't trust me.
So his whole talk here is about don't trust, verify, which means suspend judgment until you believe something is real. It sounds kind of proximal to what we do.
Don't trust, verify. So even this talk, everything I've said, don't trust me. You have to experience it yourself. And you have to learn.
So he's basically doomsaying, a little bit of doom boofery here. But the point of it is that those people in that room are all true believers. They're in the box. They don't know about PSYOPs. They don't know about news bending. They don't know about simulated news events presented as real. They don't know the scale of fakeability of the 9/11 sized hoaxes, or even the smaller hoaxes. They don't know. And so this is not a future threat, like, oh, deep fakery and algorithms are a future threat. No, we are already born into a total deception. We're in an immersive illusion. And there are new technologies that are coming along, but they point to these to suggest that it's coming, but it's already here. Going through your comments. This is where it's at. Says Satan's little season. That theory was interesting for a minute. Mud flood. These theories are fun. Yeah, supposedly we all survived the tribulation, so congratulations. 9/23/2017, the tribulations again. It's been more than 7 years. Or is this the seventh year? Did we survive the tribulation? I think we have a couple more months. But we also survived ocean levels rising. At one point here, they said the ocean levels were going to rise and swallow us up. It didn't happen. Have any of you thanked Al Gore? Like, people are mad that they have to tithe Clean Air Act and emissions tests and recycling and all that, but if we didn't give the government all that money, you realize we would have drowned, right? Ryler05 says Columbine had fake dummies on TV. Yep. Oh yeah, some of the most effective crisis actors are dummies, hyper-realistic training dummies. Joined by Nicotramus X322. Diana South says rubber muscle suits. Yeah, I have this theory that Rock is lanky and he wears a rubber muscle suit to make his brand last forever without putting undue strain on his body in order to maintain these impossible ideals, of being super muscular. You have to use certain types of drugs that, yeah, it's hard on the body. So I think I used to call Rock rubber. I kind of felt like the Liver King was also the Rubber King. That guy looks totally fake. Rilo05 says, I saw a girl who was scared of green technology. Now, what is green technology? Specifically, green technology is like a euphemism for just getting rid of technology. They're totally against the Industrial Revolution. Lean Dion says, Michael Jackson was Dave Dave. Yep, take that. Those of you who are questioning whether a celebrity can play somebody else post-mortem, Michael Jackson came back as Dave Dave. And what about Wayne Sexton and her multiple roles? This is where it's at. It says AI, bots, and algorithms. They're pushing fake stuff on us daily. Nicotrauma says Cooties is bigger in total, but it occurred over the span of 3 years. Eddie F says, what about John Levy videos? Are you into that topic? I really am into what John Levy's doing. I think it's interesting. Retro auto-hoaxing. Looking at history, and ancient history in particular, the way we look at the daily news, I think it has a place. I don't agree with his conclusion or that there was some kind of more advanced civilization a couple hundred years ago. It is interesting speculation. I believe they call it Antiquitech. Like the spires on the buildings are gathering atmospheric energy. A lot of that's interesting, but I'd have to talk to the architects or some architects and ask them, are these buildings, beyond the aesthetics, are they really a sign of a more advanced civilization? I mean, they don't have a lot of things we might consider to be indicators, like plumbing, sophisticated air conditioning. I don't know. I would say perhaps, maybe not. They usually have to insert other things, like, oh, back then we were breatharians. We didn't need bathrooms. Back then we had some kind of, again, they're always inserting the Antiquitech. And another thing, John Levy makes consistently, he makes arguments from incredulity. So he looks at a statue of like, I think there's this one statue, a figure in white marble, and they're wrapped up in some kind of a net-like material. So he looks at it, calls it gorgeous, and he says, there's no way anybody could do that. How did they do that? This must be some sophisticated 3D printer. But then you look into it, and you're like, well, how was this made? And you find that there are established practices, and it's very well understood by specialists and artists in that field on how to create these effects. And so he falls for this idea of, I can't explain it, therefore it must be something like advanced technology. I can't explain it, therefore something higher. And I reject that. I go with Arthur C. Clarke because as he said, any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic, which is true. But just because something looks like magic doesn't mean it is. If you're at a magic show, obediently in your seat, every trick will fool you because it's designed to do so from that perspective. But if you were to walk around, you would see that, no, it's actually easy to explain. By the way, phones are open. I'm going to put the number on the screen if anybody wants to call in. Number is 563-999-3664. If the 999 bothers you, because some people said it was too proximal to 666, just cross yourself before you call. You should be safe. Ollie Goering says, Dwayne the Rubber Johnson. That sounds pretty bad. Elvin Tusk says, I wish Wayne Sexton would pose for... No, you don't. Come on. We're talking about George Floyd's second grade teacher who had that crayon drawing he did. And he would have been a judge. He would have been a Supreme Court justice were it not for systemic oppression. That was the argument they made. And that image itself was obviously created in some CNN art department, kind of like the owl drawing that the Sandy kids had. Eddie F. says, the people offended by 999 also think Stormy Daniels is a dude. You know, I had told some people about this. I said, look, you're going to tell me that it's all of them. Stormy Daniels has been doing adult movies for like 40 years. That's a lot of video. And they're like, well, I don't want to look. It's like, well, neither do I, but you're the one making the claim. You're claiming that you have knowledge about this person's anatomy, and you're not willing to verify it. And they will say, well, even if it's all CGI, they will immediately make this argument, it is CGI, so you cannot falsify it, which means that they're not serious. And if they're not serious, then what are they? Like, why are they wasting their time? I wanted to ask one of them, I was like, how many celebrity crotches have you stared at over the last 3 years? And the answer is probably between 500 and 1,000. Mr. E, probably 10,000. How many hours logged do you have mis-sexing celebrities? And it's crazy when you really get down to it. And yet they have zero evidence to substantiate any of it. Nicotrauma says, Elephant Tusks, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I would say the same. I didn't read his entire comment, but he seems to be oddly fixated on Floyd's second grade teacher. By the way, Ryan Garcia had made some racist comments the other day, and Steven Jackson has threatened him. Steven Jackson goes off on Ryan Garcia. This was sent in to me by Messianic Charlatan.
Hope y'all having a good day. Check this out. Listen, first you go from taking steroids. Then you talking about digging George Floyd up and killing him again. Now you talking about you hate niggas and you want to join the KKK. Look, dog, you need to get some help, bro. Because we don't play by the same rules that you play by in that ring, dog. And I'm just telling you. Just like I told you in the DM when you said some fly shit, I told you to get some help because it's a whole different ball game out here.
Again, Ryan Garcia predicted earthquakes on 6/6 for Los Angeles and Vegas. He was part of the Me Too at Bohemian Grove PR stunt where he made some bold claims about how Andrew Tate and others were abusing him at Bohemian Grove. I don't remember the whole story, but basically that was it. He was trafficked and abused at Bohemian Grove, and he said lots of celebrities were there. He wouldn't name anybody. Then later he admitted it was a PR stunt. Then he went into this, and now he's got Steven Jackson mad at him.
Bro, anybody that got to bring up the dead is dying inside. You a clout chaser. That's all you are. You looking for attention. You trying to live a life that you didn't grow up in. You're not that, Ryan. Okay? You're a boxer. Stick to that, bro. Keep George Floyd's name out your mouth. If you hate niggas and want to join the KKK like you said.
There you go. That's enough of that. He's pretty mad. I want to point out, Steven Jackson did the last interview with Kobe Bryant, the last interview that he did before he died. And at the end of that interview, they make a very conspicuous gesture, a Masonic grip. Might be worth looking into if you want to check it out. This is George Floyd's twin, Steven Jackson, who's often there to speak up and defend George Floyd against Ryan Garcia and I think Alex Stein. Alex Stein has been making these jokes about, congratulations, George Floyd, 4 years sober, and he's been put in the crosshairs as well. Okay, let's see what else here. Isabel Ann says, I worked at an acupuncture office that treated very famous A-list women. I've seen many in underwear. They're not men. No way. No, it's a disinformation campaign. And I have a few theories about it and why it's being used. It's an active measure. And it's fundamentally gaslighting. It's majorly gaslighting. It's effective too, because you can't verify it, and their claim is that if you know the person, they're not famous enough. But if they're famous, then they are. Well, you don't know any famous people. Well, what if you became famous? Then it's because. So they have this circular reasoning. They can't be proven wrong, and if you disagree with them, they accuse you of being one of them. So I'm apparently some kind of Illuminati elite invert, is what they call me, because I don't agree with them. But I doxed. Yeah, thank you. Eddie F says it's in the same realm as all birds are fake. Yeah, all birds are fake is a fake conspiracy theory designed to destroy the credibility of people who question establishment media. And this is a similar false narrative that is designed to also discredit people. It's very discrediting. It means you don't have any evidence and you're willing to make bold, crazy claims without substantiating them. It's bizarre, at a minimum. But I doxed one of the top tier. Her name is Bevy112, and she pretends to be a hardcore Christian end times QAnon type who's very scared of the media and is scared of all celebrities, who she believes to be satanic elite. She calls them EGI. Well, it turns out that this person is actually a communications instructor at a community college in Idaho, and she's a major Bernie Sanders supporter, total communist. And she hates conservatives and hates MAGA and hates the conspiracy theories. So I have evidence, I would say, that the movement is actually driven by the people on the opposite side of the ideological divide, that it's designed to confuse and also create, I think, claims. They can make claims now. It creates the perception that these people are, now they're not just racist because they have associated racism with conspiracy theories. Now you're transphobic racist. So they just throw on stuff. Allingering says, Stormy Daniels would give birth to handsome sons. Jennifer Lawrence would give birth to pretty daughters if their children could inherit their mother's features. I don't know. I'm suggesting here that there are psyops designed to get people to doubt their perceptions. And once you doubt your perceptions enough, because somebody has continually hit you with, you can't trust yourself on this matter, then you end up going to that person to be your source. And that's how these little cults form. But moving on, we've already debunked that. And it's very telling that there's no one willing to get out there on video and make these claims. It's only anonymous people with old avatars. There's no one willing to go out there on video, put their face in the camera, and say these things. So I think it's driven by anons. Speaking of anons, the owner of the message board site 8kun, where QAnon's central figure Q has been based, is talking about shutting down the site.
Oh, this is because 8kun.top is over the target all the time. And then it's full of all these divisive characters and what have you, and you're all hoping Q will come back. Me too. You know. But I'm not Q. I don't have control over that. All I can do is try to get these things up. And we have...
Now again, this is a guy who ran 8kun. Interestingly enough, of course, as most of you know here, I'm doing a documentary on Q because we have doxed this person. And this person is being referenced directly right now by Jim Watkins. And I can also point out that 8kun, the website, was owned by the person we're speaking of. That he actually had the domain in his possession, 8kun.org. I have a conversation between the two of them talking about exchanging the domain. So here he is talking about how Q's not posting there anymore and he's going to delete the site. Well, I'm suggesting it's interesting timing that I am doing a documentary and this site plays a huge role in it and he's about to pull it.
Really good systems. Unfortunately, a lot of them we can't use right now. We have to rely on other people and not the... We're not using the varsity. We're not using the junior varsity.
Sorry, this guy sounds drugged. And it's interesting. Here's what he says, quote, Q knows how to contact me if he's done pouting like he did when he didn't get a bike for his 8th birthday, even though I told him Daddy had just gotten fired and couldn't afford one. What does he mean by Q knows how to contact me, though?
This is the sophomore team that's out there now, and next we go to the freshman team. So
Elephant Tusk says Watkins owns a pig farm, and apparently they use pigs to dispose of dead bodies. I've heard incredible rumors. In fact, he claimed something in his documentary, which I don't believe. So he bought Pokemon, Pokemon.org or .com. He bought Pokeaman.com, and he claims that he set up this adult website and that he bought this domain, and then he went to the whoever owns Pokemon, and he said, "You have to buy this domain off me if you want this off the web." So supposedly he cyber squatted and extorted and got a ton of money for a domain close to Pokemon. I don't believe it. I think the guy's a liar. His son is another big part of the story. We're talking about Jim and Stu Watkins. And the HBO documentary falsely attributed Q to them, but they say it's not them. Well, both of them, of course, know who Q is. And it's interesting it hasn't come out yet. I think it's very conspicuous how incurious people are about it, but we do have that information. And in the last week, I've been followed by a number of interesting characters on X, media, and I'm wondering, maybe people are looking into what I've been putting out there. Yeah, Code Monkey Z. What happened to Code Monkey Z, his son? Well, he ran for Congress, didn't get anywhere. I got him on the phone once, and when he was running for office, I actually called the state capitol. I got his cell phone number, Code Monkey Z. I called him to ask questions about George News and Q, and he knew not to say anything. But no, these two are very questionable. It's a father and son. So here's a video of the space station. No stars, no spin, but it's very stationary right here. And what I'm noticing here, this is interesting to me. When you see the ISS from the ground, you're seeing something that's supposed to be 10 times brighter than Venus. It's this big light and it's moving super fast. But in all these spacewalks, when you see the astronauts outside, it doesn't look like it's reflecting the sun. Like it's not glowing all that bright. I don't know what the exact explanation is, but have we seen any footage of the ISS from the ISS where it's bright and shiny? All right, let's get to the notes here. Okay, here's a question for you. Many people will say, I believe in geoengineering because of leaked government documents. If you believe in leaked government documents as an explanation, as a plausible explanation or reason to believe in chemtrails or contrails being geoengineering, etc., if you believe that leaked documents can be trusted, put a 1 in the chat. Want to see if anybody trusts leaked government documents. If you don't, put 0 in the chat. If you don't believe in leaked government documents being a source of information, credible information, put a 0. But if you're like, well, no, that was leaked, therefore they don't want us to know, so it's true because government's the enemy. If that's your take, put 1. I'm seeing, okay, everything we see they want us to see, says Jessica Lynn. I'm seeing some zeros piling up. 0, 0, 0. Nobody here trusts government documents? Because we have this whistleblower here. U.S. Air Force whistleblower reveals how she went from debunking to confirming geoengineering. She's a whistleblower. Do we trust whistleblowers? If you trust whistleblowers, press 1. If you don't trust whistleblowers, go with a 0. Do we trust whistleblowers with leaked documents? Portal Complex says, does WikiLeaks count? Yeah. Do you trust WikiLeaks? Julian Assange. Julian Assange is not an auto hoaxer. Nothing he says has any relevance as far as being truthful or getting you closer to a big picture of how this thing operates. He's still stuck within the political horseshoe and all the boxes within boxes, highly compartmentalized. This is where it's at, says leaked docs, hot mics, all fake-ish. Lean Dion says, they're never actually doing anything on the spacewalks. How could you work in that big suit and clumsy gloves? Yeah, it looks like they're playing around, like they're pretending. You know how in movies you have extras who pretend to eat, who pretend to have conversations, and they're just going through cycles of motions? That's what I see on the spacewalks. Okay, I don't see any believers. Jessica Lynn says everything is a psyop within a psyop. Okay, well here's my point, is that there are whistleblowers who tell us that there are UFOs. There are whistleblowers who claim that there are alien hybrids and the government has secret agreements with satanic aliens that are spiritual beings, etc. So if we're going to trust whistleblowers on geoengineering, then we have to trust it on everything else. And it was Witsit Gets It who hit me with, of course I believe in geoengineering, chemtrails, stratospheric aerosol injection heart because of leaked government documents. Like, well, there are leaked government documents and whistleblowers that say a lot of things. So is that a source or isn't it? And the answer is no, it's not. It should not be. Not if you're a skeptic. It's called reverse psychology. In marketing, they use this technique of discovery. Discover for yourself. So I could tell you to go somewhere and try this new meal, this new restaurant, try some dessert. I tell you to do it, you might not do it. But when they say discover for yourself, you know, it's a form of marketing where truthers fall for it. Oh, I'm discovering for myself by eating up this truther chicken feed, by following the breadcrumbs, by QAnon. You know, they say do your own research. It's actually do your own brainwashing. But when you do it for yourself, you're more likely to trust it because you trust yourself. But if the authority tells you you don't because you're not trusting authorities, it's a Jedi mind trick. Mango Penguin says, I'm going to watch Warcraft. You all have a blessed evening. Didn't know it was a movie. I'll probably take a look. Don't fake government document me, bro. Exactly. If you're going to claim, like, hey, this government document backs up my view here, well, then you have to say, well, which government documents don't you trust? I love when people are cherry picking like that. So we can categorically reject whistleblowers from now on. And no whistleblower should be taken seriously if they're not uncovering the nature of mediation itself as an aspect of government, there being only one government. And no whistleblower is going to tell you, oh, the human race has been totally subjugated. All this left and right and China and Russia versus America, commie, capitalist freedom versus tyranny, all that is fake. And it's not an oversimplification that the human race has been ubiquitously, universally conquered and put into an alternate reality game for all time. This is a collective Plato's cave and there is no escape. At least there's no escape advertised. You can voluntarily deprogram, but no one can deprogram you. There are only 3 groups of people in the world right now. The programmed, the programmers, and the deprogrammed. And the deprogrammed would be those of us who have stepped outside of their paradigm and looked at it objectively. And then it also include those who are climbing up the pyramid, who are deprogrammed at various levels. So you might have someone who's deprogrammed about this epidemic of mass shootings. Like, okay, they know these are fake, but they still believe in space travel, for example. Astronauts would be they would be heavily deprogrammed to be able to find themselves dangling from a bungee cord, pretending to be in space, talking to children on Earth. Like, to be a part of that, yeah, you have to be very much out of the mainstream view of things. You're initiated. You have a high security clearance. But what we're doing here is we are taking the information that is reserved for the programmers and those with high security clearances, and we're open sourcing it. This is open source illumination, Autohoax accelerationism. If you can understand the implications and the significance of this information, run with it. Every autohoaxer knows more and says more relevant information than any of these two-dimensional whistleblowers who all get like Amazon best-selling books. Like, yeah, you're real censored. Back to the Future is back on Netflix, says Ryler05. Interesting. This is where it's asked, has Julian Assange had a comfy gig all these years? You know, people would share images of Julian Assange like he's a saint, and the QAnoners literally worship him. They believe he's related to Donald Trump, and that he's some kind of, in fact, I think they've associated him with Nikola Tesla somehow, but they see him as some kind of ascended master, and that the deep state is holding him because what he has to say is so dangerous, and then he gets released and it's a big nothing burger. He didn't blow anything up. He's not a threat to the system. I think he's two-dimensional, and if anybody wants to dispute that, please do. Tell me how this guy that doesn't know that NASA fakes everything, who doesn't know the shootings are fake, the terror attacks are fake, who doesn't know how monolithic media is, tell me how he has anything of value to say. You know, it's all within the box. Isabel Ann says, once you go Autohoax, you don't go back. Yeah, the way the spell is cast is they data dump 2 or 3 days worth of news into your skull every single day. And people are powerless against it. That's why I say they're submerged in the ocean of irrelevance. But what we have done is we have learned to, like what we're doing with the ISS, we have learned how to categorically reject certain types of claims. Just because they throw a body count and a shocking headline doesn't mean it's true. So by emphasizing the need for evidence first and suspending judgment, we are not obliged to believe everything they throw our way. And once you unplug from their news cycles, once you've stepped back from it, there's no reason to jump back in. I'm not in the mind war. I have not been triggered by a news story easily in 7 years. Maybe longer. I mean, really, I used to believe the news. I used to believe the false flag theories. I thought, well, the news is worse than what the normies say. Oh, it's pretty bad that this kid shot up the school, but it's worse because the government did it to score points against the Second Amendment so they can take away the guns and bring about global tyranny. So this was a mass child sacrifice for the global elite to take over. That's pretty bad. Now I'm like, the whole thing was a clown show, a psyop, atrocity propaganda, poorly executed. Oliver says, what did he leak of credible value? What did he leak? I don't know. Again, I'm trying to figure it out. I saw a video of him hanging out with Lady Gaga, and she was dressed like the Wicked Witch of the West. He's popular with celebrities, but again, I think he's two-dimensional. Ollie Goering says, here's a funny, Julian Assange is free. The nonners celebrate this as a win. Kamala becomes president. Watch the blurring of the way the left and the right reacts. Tomanoid3 says House of the Dragon has all the albinos. Isn't House of the Dragon about civil war? And the last one was about Roe v. Wade being leaked. If you didn't see House of the Dragon Season 1, it came out during the Roe v. Wade leak. And the opening scene was the Queen being forced to give birth to the male because even though she's the most powerful woman in the kingdom, she has no power because she's a broodmare for the state, and it's a bunch of barbarians making decisions for her because she has no bodily autonomy because the Supreme Court is overturning Roe v. Wade. That was the message behind Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Season 1. And I was like, how did they get that messaging into a Game of Thrones season so perfect? Did they know there was going to be a leak when they produced the episode? No. The programming in the entertainment corresponds to the programming in the news. The infotainment. It's not really news. Oh, I see. Tom Woody, he's comparing the albinos in House of the Dragon to Julian Assange. Gotcha. Eddie F. says, without the internet, what would we be doing? Well, pre-internet, the same thing was controlled through analog. you still have magazines, newspapers, tabloids, word of mouth, faxes, photography. William Randolph Hearst said, "You provide the pictures, I'll provide the war." The mind war has always been with us, and it's an extension of an ancient technology of mind control we call religion, where they insert God constructs to keep people under control. And I don't believe in any God constructs. I mean, I believe in them, but I don't acknowledge them as real. I recognize that they're God constructs. So, for example, how many of you fear Gaia? If you fear Gaia, put a 1 in the chat. Do you fear that if you don't modify your behavior, and we don't do it collectively, that Gaia is going to destroy us? Because if you fear that God construct, you're going to recycle. You're going to genuflect before the recycling bin, which is a form of confession. When you recycle, you're confessing your climate sins. If you don't feel climate angst, then you haven't been sufficiently humbled before this God. You should be terrified. You should believe we are in the end times if you're truly Gaia fearing. I don't fear Gaia. Now, what about the war god? Do any of you duck and cover? Do any of you have such dread over this mushroom cloud war god that sprays the skies with dangerous waste that blocks the sun? Because I don't fear that war god. I am not the least bit concerned about the atomic bomb. Metaphorically described, as Godzilla in all these movies. Godzilla is just the nuke. But the nuke is a god construct. So what I'm saying here is that before television, they had war gods. They had plague gods. They had demons. They had various things that they could use to control people's minds. These constructs, these hyperstitions. If you look at the movie The Village, it's a commune living as though it's the 18th century, and they're cut off from the 20th century. And yet they're totally mind controlled. Now they're having fun and they're happy, but they're also terrified because they know that the monsters populate the woods surrounding the village because their elders told them. So they never leave. But if they did, they would find that they're missing out on quite a bit. It's like an updated operating system where you can be terrified of other things, newer things. All your archaic fears can be replaced, like sin. Sin is being phased out, but then enter the virus, enter the pandemic. Moral panics, no. Pandemic, yes. Okay, moving on. Howard Boyd says, talk your shh to me. Awesome, thank you for joining. This is where it's out, says a remix at climate change, global warming. Soon they're going to talk about the next ice age. But isn't it ironic, though, that if you truly believe the science, if you're truly humbled before the scientific clergy, the priesthood, the climate scientists, you would believe we are in the end times. You would be in a panic about it. Climate anxiety is a thing. It's the new God-fearing. I'm not God-fearing. I'm not globe-fearing. I don't buy any of their God constructs, and I don't accept their false heaven of outer space. Lean Dion says, we're warming so much it's actually cooling, was a new headline. The thing is that the resistance to the big lie, the Gaia God construct, those who resist the Gaia construct still believe that the world is about to end or that we're still being poisoned and toxined. They have a new God construct. It's secret government. It's this nefarious group who are behind the scenes doing things that are inimical to human survival long term, and we're all going to die. Like end times is just a common facet of the world stage model. And the programmers don't care if you believe that God's going to kill us all in 5 years, or aliens are going to kill us all in 5 years, or Gaia is going to kill us all, or the atomic bomb. As long as you accept the premise that we're all going to die, as long as you accept the premise that the building's on fire, then they're cool with you. They just need you to be in a state of panic. And what skepticism leads to is quiescence, peace of mind. It ends the info war, the mind war, the perpetual war, which is in your head. It's 100% in the mind. And it's way more effective to control people. You know, they make us sort of insane if you think about it. They make us delusional, delusionists, paranoids, and we're eminently programmable. This is MK Ultra writ large. 8 billion people programmed the same way. But it's all based on God constructs. Eddie F says, if you watch the Weather Channel, everything is red when it hits 90 degrees. All fear, just like during COVID, they had the death count. You know, I just picked up a book, and I'm making it a point to build back my collection of books. I used to always have books around me, and then I replaced it with digital, but I realized one of the things I used to do on the random is I'll just grab books that I've already read. Several books, or sometimes I would just accumulate books. So I would never be without new information. I find that if I have books there, I will read them. If I don't, I won't. You know, it's just that simple. It's a habit thing. So I've made it a habit to pick up a lot of books, and I picked one up today on the cheap, and it's called Night World. And it's about the sun no longer rising. It says here, never in the history of the world has such a thing happened before, the delay of sunrise. At first, scientists thought it was a miscalculation, an error of time measurement. But then came the strange winds, the volcanoes, the swarms of devouring insects, and every man, woman, and child on earth knew this was not a natural catastrophe. Now, I haven't read it. It has a great blurb by a few other authors in the genre, but I saw this book about the sun not coming up again. I thought that should be interesting. All right, let's move on here. Yeah, if you watch the Weather Channel, by the way, they do, in fact, psyop the weather. How many times have you seen reporters saying that they're in a hurricane or that they're in a flood, but the people behind them seem to be enjoying nice weather? It's like, why is this guy leaning into the wind and the camera is shaking? And then in the background, they're holding hands. So they kind of psyop the weather quite a lot. In fact, the movie Twister comes out in a couple of weeks. And tornadoes and hurricanes are pretty big right now. Not that these things aren't real, but that the media has a propensity for exaggerating. They crisis act on the weather. And speaking of the Weather Channel, the Weather Channel co-founder, John Coleman, was a major league climate change denialist. And he has gone on the record time and again making some pretty great arguments against the absurdity of it all. And I've been listening to some podcasts on the subject, and I learned a few things about it. Turns out that there are many, many climate models, sort of like gematria calculators. And if you don't get the answer you want, you can just pick up another model. And that's what they've been doing all these years. Projections and models, and none of them really correlate. They find one that does, they use it, now they look like prophets. But they're generally wrong. In fact, here's a short clip. This is Brian Stelter. And again, someone mentioned, Eddie F said that it's dumb celebrities playing other celebrities. I agree. But there is this rumor that Brian Stelter here is also Subway Jared. Remember Subway Jared? The guy who eventually, I guess, went to jail for horrible stuff. Let me play this clip of the Weather Channel guy where he says that climate change is baloney.
Chicago and San Diego. Now he's retired, but his recent open letter saying that climate change is, quote, not valid, got a lot of attention and landed him in prime time on Fox News. So what did the Weather Channel do? It very publicly disavowed him. After all, for those who believe that the climate is changing and fast, this is a life and death matter. I've said before here on Reliable Sources that I don't think there are two equal sides to climate change. The scientific consensus is that it's real. The debate is over what to do about it. And the press has to be careful about creating this notion of sides. But Coleman's platform as a co-founder of a channel dedicated to weather is unique, and so is the...
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, is that you got the Weather Channel co-founder coming out strongly.
In science isn't a vote. Science is about facts. And if you get down to the hard, cold facts, there's no question about it. Climate change is not happening. There is no significant man-made global warming now. There hasn't been any in the past, and there's no reason to expect any in the future. There's a whole lot of baloney, and yes, it has become a big political point of the Democratic Party and part of their platform, and I regret it's become political instead of scientific, but the science is on my side.
I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion about the topic right
There you go. Again, he has some clout because of his role in the Science Channel. So here's Brian Stelter. And here is Subway Jared. And so if you just use your imagination here, subtract the hair, the glasses, lose a little weight, and it could be, I mean, I'm not attached to this particular one, but there's someone who was sending me a bunch of these one year. He's like, look, I think this person is that person. And I looked at them, not conclusive, but I'm more interested in some of these if there's a intriguing backstory in which it makes sense. But are we in the universe where that makes sense? I don't think so. Not necessarily. Eddie F says, no way, that's him. The thing is, what I think it's important to do is to be an informed non-believer. You can't just say, I mean, you can say, I don't believe it because I don't. Well, what is your reason? If it's because the eyes don't match, the skull doesn't match. There has to be an informed disbelief. And, of course, it's an extraordinary claim, and the burden is on the person making the claim. And to me, to my satisfaction, none of these have been effectively investigated. Okay, now look at this. I want to show you something just for comparison. This is the deployment of TurkSat. 6A satellite confirmed. So what are we looking at here? You're looking at a satellite being deployed. But if you look at the screen, you're also seeing what appears to be debris or bubbles coming out. Lots of little bubbles there. But that's not what I'm drawing your attention to. Forget the bubbles. Ask yourself, why is this disappearing into the darkness when it's not even a few hundred yards away? Why is it getting so dark? Wait a minute, what's happening? Why is it disappearing? Now, if you compare that to what I showed you earlier, where the astronauts are here hanging out on the space station, and if you look, you can see the Earth back there. It doesn't get dark a few hundred feet away from the space station. So what's the difference here? The difference is some of these maneuvers outside the space station, docking, releasing satellites, and spacewalks, some of these are done on a model with the screen in the background, but some of these various maneuvers are done underwater. So the docking is done underwater, and what you're seeing here is light loss. And if you look at scuba divers underwater, at night, when they're deep enough at night, the light doesn't go that far. They call it light loss. It diffuses. And why are we seeing light loss in space on some of these clips? Well, you see it on the docking where it's done underwater, and you see it on spacewalks on the helmet cam from the astronauts. But at the same time, you can find other examples where the spacewalks aren't done underwater, or they seem to be done, perhaps it is, I don't know, sometimes it looks like it might be some kind of cable system. I don't know. We have to look at these on a case-to-case basis. They tend to keep the same technology. They tend not to make radical changes, and when they do make changes, they tend to screw up a lot. Augmented virtual reality glitches make up a lot of the ISS fakery that we routinely examine here. Isabel Ann says, my friend is a scuba diver, 10 years. Oh, okay. So I would ask, here's what I would say. Let me do this. We're putting together an IPR deep dive on the space station. And this is going to include the observations of July 20th to the 23rd. So we're going to deal with the whole thing. So I'm putting this together. And I'm going to purposefully, in this video, I'm going to make it a point to do a lot of comparisons between scuba diving videos and ISS videos. So I would just say, share the video with your friend. I'm going to be making that point too. If you know anybody who scuba dives, ask them. From their expert opinion, what are you looking at? Is this light loss, or is this some special quality of outer space? Because if it is, it's inconsistent. Ryler5 says, I don't think Beryl was Category 5. They exaggerate the strength of these storms. Notice how we could get hit right before it hit. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. That's what I mean. It's the exaggeration. So I'm not a reality denialist. But they are reality augmenters. The difference is we all experience the same objective reality. But some people have a different concept of what they're seeing based on reality augmentation. So, for example, you put on AVR glasses, and now you see something in the room that isn't really there and nobody else can see it, like a Pokemon or a space station. So it's right there, nobody else can see it. That's an augmented virtual reality artifact. But before AVR, you had superstitions or just good old-fashioned lies. What do lies do? Lies insert things into your worldview. They augment your reality. Lies are augmented virtual reality artifacts. And when everybody believes in a lie, it becomes a hyperstition. It becomes real by default, in a sense. Oswaldo says space station or scuba station. You know, it's also likely here that what you're seeing is the space station underwater and the lights are off. Same station. I mean, it's the simulated one. Oh, by the way, good news. Speaking of Hurricane Beryl, that video of a shark on the highway near Corpus Christi, it didn't really become a Sharknado. The shark isn't real. I was like sharing this. I was like, look, there's a shark on the highway. But it turns out that this image is recycled every time it rains. So this is not the first time that this shark has made an appearance. There's actually a Wikipedia page, Hurricane Shark. Hurricane Shark or Street Shark are nicknames for several claimed instances of a live shark swimming in flooded urban areas, typically in the aftermath of hurricanes. For more than a decade, this street shark has been shown swimming on flooded freeways and highways and has been debunked. However, during Hurricane Ian in 2022, there was a video that showed a shark or other large fish near Florida, but they said it was a juvenile. But anyway, it goes on to say, the reemergence of the hoax in hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, and the eventual appearance of a plausible claim have been the subject of commentary and amusement. Daniel Victor of the New York Times describes the Associated Press's findings as, quote, like discovering Bigfoot is real. So what happened is, the rumor was there, persisted for years, and then they find a real example. So now, sharks swim on freeways after hurricanes. This is like the ISS, it's like UFOs. You create a rumor, you create a buzz, and then something somewhere somewhat aligns with it, and it becomes real. It validates it. That's the nature of the hyperstition. So watch out for the street sharks if it's raining. This is where it says astronauts know they lie, they're in on it. Oh, they're the top tier liars. If you're an astronaut, you're a major liar, and you're so deep in this thing that it's fair to say that if you know space is fake, you know the shootings are fake. You know the terror attacks are fake. Now, do they know the globe is fake? Or is it fake? They would know. If anybody knows what's behind the deception, it's them. What is it? Are they hiding continents? Or is it flat? Ted Stryker says, Beryl gave us 45 minutes of rain here in Corpus Christi. No local news shared anything about a street shark. Dinah South says, Piltdown Man was a hoax from 1912, the supposed missing link from apes to mankind. Right. Ryler05 says, decoding your reality YouTube channel is an arrogant effing... Okay. I've seen decoding your reality, I believe. But a lot of these reality decoders don't know that the events they're talking about, predictive programming, fake news events, they may not know the extent of the fakery. A lot of them still ascribe to the idea of revelation in the method. They still think they're false flag attacks. So you have to be sure of what you're looking at when you're looking at a reality decoder. Like, for example, Donnie Darkin for years has been talking about Back to the Future and Donald Trump. He's going to be the Antichrist. But even though he's a big proponent of this stuff, he thinks Trump's really going to get a head wound. He doesn't think it's going to be a psyop. This is where it's at. It says, O.J. Simpson played an astronaut in a movie. Enough said. Well, Fly Me to the Moon comes out tomorrow, or it's going to be in theaters tomorrow. And it's not going to take away the existence of outer space as the new universal heaven. It doesn't deconstruct the worldview whatsoever. It takes this one event and in isolation posits that this is a hoax, but everything else is real. So it's a tree that they've in the forest of fakery. Yeah, we can sacrifice this tree as long as the forest is intact. Same with the shootings. They don't care if you focus on the you-know-what shooting 24/7. They don't care because that's one tree in a forest of fakery. They would care if the people who looked into that event knew by heart the list of 20, 30, or 40 similar events that were similarly faked. That's what truthers miss. They're following red herrings, they're running circles around big trees designed to get their attention, and they don't realize that every single tree in this forest is rubber. They're all fake. They're all made out of the same rubber that they use to carve out those hyper-realistic training dolls and the fake casualties they use at these various events. I have actual experience with fake dead people. When I was at Fort Lee, Virginia, I was Mortuary Affairs 92 Mike, and a lot of our training was moving corpses, not literal corpses, but we had training dolls that weighed as much as real people. So we could get used to moving bodies around. And there was an entire warehouse full of these simulation training dummies, and they were pretty good back then. Fully articulated, they flexed properly, and you had to know proper lifting technique to move these things. It was a workout. The dead weight, as they say. And dead weight just meaning it doesn't work with you. But this is a standard thing, training with hyper-realistic dolls, but they become realer. And the training dummies they use today bleed, they breathe. Some of them can even talk. They can say, I can't breathe. Eddie F. says, I doubt Trump gets fake shot. Well, our basis for saying it is the same basis for saying that the Twin Towers are going to be hit by planes and they're going to collapse. If I had said that in the year 2000, you would have said you're crazy. And I'd say, well, look at this movie, look at this book, this comic, Cookie Monster eating one of the Twin Towers. It's pretty obvious they're going to do something. And I would have been right. Similarly, we said Seattle's going to be ground zero for World War III on 11/3. Well, on 3/11, Seattle was ground zero for the pandemic, aka World War III. So, using the same line of thinking, predictive programming as predictive model, it's pretty clear that Trump is going to get the JFK treatment at some point. It's going to be biblical. Revelation 13:1. It's going to be fake as F, but it's going to be, at least according to the predictive programming, some kind of a catalyst. And he's not going to die. That's all in the predictive programming, which goes back the earliest instance I can find of Donald Trump on the world stage is Trackdown 1958, where he's selling a village on a wall to protect them from cosmic threats. Think Space Force. Think build the wall, and he's a snake oil salesman. Wonder what that could reference. Snake oil, wall, Space Force. All built into this 1958 episode of Trackdown. And speaking of Back to the Future, because time travel has a lot to do with Trump in all the predictive programming, there's an episode of Quantum Leap that takes place where the character jumps back to May 10th, 1958. And the episode is called, I think it's called It's a Wonderful Leap. But anyway, he jumps back to May 10th, 1958. And he's a cab driver. And in the back seat of the cab is a 12-year-old Donald Trump with his father. So 12-year-old Donald Trump is in a 1958 episode of Quantum Leap, or dated 1958. Now, why is this significant? Because May 9th, 1958 is the date that the episode of Trackdown aired, where Donald Trump was represented as Trump the snake oil salesman. And that episode was called End of the World. So the connections here. End of the world is a key phrase. It has to do with time travel in Donnie Darko, which has to do with time travel specifically. But these two episodes, chronologically, are one day apart. And they're both about Trump. And so 1958, May 9th, May 10th. Very interesting connections here. This is where it's at. Said the new Boys trailer, the thumbnail made me think about Trump's head wound. So that's season 4. I'd like to see it. If you can post a link. Okay, The Boys season 4 Prime Video. I'm not sure if I'm seeing it proper. I'm not sure if this is the thumbnail you're referencing, but yeah, I'll take a look. We were talking about the Trump 45 whiskey glasses. He's a teetotaler, never drinks, but he's got a whiskey glass with a bullet from a 45 sticking in the side of it. That's insane. But I'm not making predictions so much as I am inferring from the script what comes next. And it's undeniable that the life of Trump has many mirrors in the entertainment world. And lately we've been talking about the Joker-Batman connections to major world stage psyops, in particular the Joker-Batman dialectic, as Joker represents the left, the Antifa, Batman represents Patriot Front, the right. There's this left-right dialectic built into it, the political horseshoe, and the fringes are Batman-Joker, which I think tie in to the Masonic dialectic and the two pillars, the black and the white pillar, Boaz, Jacob, or Batman-Joker, Batman with the black mask, Joker with the white face paint. And this goes way back, especially if you look into 1966 episode 33 of the Batman television series, where it was said that Batman's great-grandfather was the founder of the Skull and Bones Society. And that right there places Batman in a very interesting position here, because it corresponds to what we're seeing here. Christopher Nolan, Dark Knight Rises, the Batman movie, is replete with predictive programming, and it introduced the symbol of the bat, the burning bat, the bat as Phoenix, which corresponds to 2020. In that movie, there was a bit of predictive programming for a mushroom cloud, which, the way I'll describe it is, he throws so Batman's hanging out with this co-hero who doesn't wear a mask. And he says to Batman, "I don't need a mask, I'm not afraid." And Batman says, "You wear the mask to protect the people that you love." So Batman is there quoting Dr. Fauci 8 years before. This is in 2012. And then he throws a smoke bomb that looks like a COVID ball. He says, "Count to 5 and throw this." So he counts to 5 and he throws it, and he creates a mushroom cloud. So if you look at this from our 2024 perspective, you have 1, the COVID spike, and then you have the countdown to 5, and then a mushroom cloud. Christopher Nolan just did Oppenheimer, the mushroom cloud. His brother Jonathan Nolan did Fallout. So you kind of have this predictive programming for Oppenheimer before he was ever tapped to make that movie. But I think the countdown from 5, from the spiked ball, represents 2025. That maybe they're going to do the Oppenheimer event in 2025. But the point of it is, when they fake it, it will have been produced. The awards will go to Christopher Nolan and his brother. Okay, this is where it's at. You posted a trailer. Thank you. Let me get that. Yeah, someone pointed out Tenet.
$5.
Someone points out here, Tenet with the Ukraine conflict. Thank you, Tom103. Yes, and Tenet also had a scene that looked like the Crocus Theater psyop. Okay, so the season 4 trailer for The Boys. I'm going to see if I can pull that image up. I'm looking for the exact image to see the Trump head wound thing. You can send it to me later. It's voluminous. If you want to see Trump with a symbolic head wound, just open up any copy of The Atlantic, and it's pretty much there. Okay, Fly Me to the Moon. I'll check that out. I'll do a review of it. We talked about Street Sharks, God Constructs, space being faked underwater. As far as the space station transits that we're going to do, the observations, I want to make it clear at the very outset. We are not accepting the burden of proof. Like, I don't have to disprove unicorns to the unicorn believers. Now, if I want to do them a favor, I can, but it's not up to me. If you come up to me and you say, I believe in unicorns, debunk me, bro. I'm like, no, you have to prove they exist first. This is an auto-hoax axiom. You don't have to debunk that which hasn't been bunked. So the correct order of things would be, you prove it, you show your evidence, and we debunk it. But they're not providing evidence. They'll say it's there because of hearsay. Somebody somewhere saw a light in the sky, so I believe. That's not good enough. We're throwing that away. So what we're doing here, July 20th to the 23rd, I think we decided. And if you want to join us, it's very easy. Just go to the Discord server. We're going to get as many witnesses as we can for a single ISS pass. The burden's not on us, but we're going to take the initiative. And we're going to make the observation. And we're going to see what we can see. A lot of people suggest that, well, maybe they're faking the space station with some kind of special plane. But the more we talk about it, the more we realize that that's completely implausible. There is no plane that can go 25,000 miles in 90 minutes. That's what would be required to fake it. So then you have to ask, well, maybe they're faking it with multiple planes. Is that even possible? And I would argue no, not to match with the transit points. So it's going to lead us to this point where we're going to rule out bad observations and see what we have. Is it going to be nothing? Or is there going to be some strange craft that meets the criteria, in which case we will have to concede that there is a space station? Because there is no object the shape of a space station that can move through our atmosphere at that rate. Therefore, there is a space station in the frictionless environment of outer space, which we will then have to admit it exists. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, so hopefully I am. It would be very exciting, but if I'm not, I'm fine with that as well. Eddie F says there's nothing up there. Where's the footage of them building the ISS? Oswaldo says unicorns exist. I have proof. Debate me, bro. Okay, you texted the image. Thank you. Let me get that image from you. I should set up a number. I do have one, but where people can specifically send me images via text. Now, if you sent it to the Blog Talk Radio number, I should be able to access it. I'll take a look here. If I don't get to it tonight, we'll pull it up tomorrow. No big deal. Did any of you see these new Arby's commercials? Where the Arby's is apparently run by the Illuminati. Let me show you a clip.
Hello, and welcome to the Order of Potato Cakes. We've seen you in the comments section. Some might say you were obsessive or deluded. Heck, some might consider it corporate harassment. But in the Order of Potato Cakes, we call it passion.
It's the Order of the Potato Cakes, some kind of Illuminati joke, similar to what Taco Bell did.
To ensure the prophecy is fulfilled. Don't worry, they're fine.
It's kind of weird and borderline Pizzagate-y. I think it's intended to go viral.
The more you purchase Arby's potato cakes, the closer we all get to true potato cake enlightenment. Join us.
It has this really catchy cyberpunk background music. Very interesting series. It's called The Orientation, The Uncovering. Very unusual. Just something to look out for if you haven't seen it yet. This might be a coincidence. General Flynn has 1.6 million followers. 1/6, January 6th, major insurrectionist. Waco raided over 1.6 million rounds. 1/6 seems to follow them. Okay, here's a picture of the Trump 45 whiskey glass, because a guy who doesn't drink obviously needs to have a whiskey glass. And it has and this is a president, you know. Imagine a JFK whiskey glass with a bullet in the side of it. What would it be, an AK-47? What was he shot with? It'd be 3 bullets anyway. But Trump 45 with a bullet hole. And a real bullet right in the side of the shot glass. And now he has a mug shot glass. Like, tell me that's not some kind of foreshadowing. One of our reporters went over and checked it out. Here's the wine whiskey bar at Trump Tower. Again, wine whiskey bar, and you can get the 45 shot glass. This is where it's at. It says cringy. Oh yeah, Arby's is totally cringy with that. I think it was a ripoff of Taco Bell. They did it better. Who wore the all-seeing eye better, Taco Bell or Arby's? TMZ says the Vatican has paintings that appear to show otherworldly shapes that evoke flying saucers. Is the Vatican hiding an archive of paranormal secrets? It's on TMZ, so it's worth considering. And TMZ is suggesting that there are aliens, and they're probably demonic, I think.
But I was freaked out when I went to the Vatican by the paintings. I know that it's all kind of rooted in the Bible and everything, but there are these weird images, and I'm sorry, but they look otherworldly. So here are some examples of paintings. And things in the sky.
Clouds. That's a cloud.
Yeah, those look like
Okay, but it's a cloud with...
Anyway, this is like X-Files, like 2000 stuff. I don't know why they're recycling it. I think they feel like it's safe again. It's one of the reasons why they hate the flat earth topic, because the flat earthers are totally taking the seriousness out of all these UFO claims. Oh, by the way, yesterday, no, the 8th, was the 77th anniversary of the disk crashing in Corona Field in Roswell, New Mexico. 77 years ago, an event transpired in Roswell that has perpetuated its influence throughout history. The United States military proclaimed the discovery of a crashed disk. Oh, so the military said it, only to retract the statement saying it was a weather balloon. This is when the PSYOP begins. The fact that it crashes in Corona is hugely symbolic. During the first lockdown, the Corona lockdown, I drove to Roswell and I went to go see it, to go see where the supposed crash happened 77 years ago. Now this is interesting. I'm seeing a lot of this stuff. This is UFO grift. It's pretty bad. This UFO hunter on Twitter with millions of followers is claiming that his child is having UFO sightings. So they post these images of crayon drawn alien families, what appear to be a child taken up in a UFO. So he's getting clicks by claiming that his child is a UFO abductee. This is brainwashing. This is I guess that's religion. I shouldn't say brainwashing. It's religion, because angels aren't palatable to the atheistic, progressive, utopian leftists who adhere to the cult of scientism and nasatology. For them, it's aliens. But the flat earth topic has been more or less sidelined, and so now they're bringing out all this really lame UFO stuff. Here's Laura Loomer making a prediction. Get ready for some false flag this week. And that was on the 8th, so we still have a couple more days. The Democrats are desperate for Joe Biden and his health not to be the focus, especially with NATO leaders in D.C. Don't be shocked if there's a false flag. Now, false flags don't actually happen. She says bookmark this tweet. I will. False flags don't happen. A false flag implies the event is real, but it was provoked or staged. Like the government got somebody to go do something. But the truth of it is, these are simulations. They're simulated, not stimulated. Ollie Goering says, aliens are boring. No one is coming to save us. Well, this alien invasion scenario has been a mainstay of conspiracy conjecture for decades, and it hasn't arrived. And if you think about it, this has been an example of multi-generational predictive programming. H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds. But I don't think it's ever meant to happen. It's not going to happen. Just like the end times. It's never going to happen, biblically speaking. But they want you to believe it's imminent. That's the whole point of it. The aliens are kind of a God construct as well, in a sense that they're generally represented as judgmental, as standoffish and watching us to see what we do, and they intervene right before we destroy ourselves. That's a recurring theme. Although lately the trend has been malicious aliens, and so the aliens are saviors, super intelligent benefactors, watching us as a species, as we develop. So the aliens are both like angels to the progressive left, but to the right wing, they're terrifying, adrenochrome-sucking demons in collusion with the government, which is already scary to the fringe right. And they find that far more believable. Tucker Carlson has been saying this for years, or months now. He's been saying, aliens are real because of a whistleblower, and that they're spiritual demons and the government works with them. So which is it? Are they demonic entities working with the governments, or are they benevolent benefactors, possibly human beings evolved at some point in the future to become this? And what are aliens? And look at the terminology. We call them grays. Well, what is gray? Well, black and white. So it's the merging. It's the two into one. It's the dialectic. It's the synthesis. So you have the idea here of left, right, of nations versus nation states versus globalism. These different dialectics they set up. So if you look at what does the alien invasion actually represent? Unification of all mankind. That's what it represents. Whether it's we unite against the aliens, or the aliens come down to help us achieve some kind of a unity. But it's interesting too, again, it's all terminology, the words they use, that the same people who think that aliens are demonic and have some secret arrangement with the government are the ones who believe that illegal aliens are demonic and have some secret cooperation with the deep state Democrat government. So in the same breath, Tucker Carlson will say aliens are dark and they're evil. Aliens from Africa, working age illegal aliens, are dangerous and evil. They conflate the two. Well, why is that? It's because it has to do with the concept of the outsider and porous versus open boundaries. So, for example, the right believes in closed borders, closed skin, no vax, and they believe in a robust Second Amendment to defend their home boundary. But the left is like, no guns, open your doors to the alien invaders or the illegal aliens. They're like, welcome to the aliens, the outer space aliens, and they're like, please, vax me more, boost me more, porous skin. So one side is open, one side is closed. One side embraces the alien, and one side is xenophobic. One side embraces the injection, the other side rejects it. So that's an internal alien invasion. So this is the main dialectic, and it has to do with your essential attitude towards government. Do you embrace it, or do you fear it? And the right is positioned to be anti-government. The left is positioned to be anti-freedom, free market, capitalism, private sector. But the alien is a construct. And again, the left believes in progressive utopianism and nasatology. They don't believe in angels. But the right obviously believes in angels. In fact, they are now couching it in specifically good versus evil terminology from a spiritual sense. Whether it's Tucker or even Candace Owen, another right-wing fake rogue who's now saying that NASA is utterly satanic. Catching up on your comments, Elephant Tusk says, remember that TV show Alien Nation? Someone else mentioned another one, V. V might be worth looking at again. Okay, let's move on here. Starliner astronauts say they're comfortable on the space station and the return is still weeks away. Barry Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are stuck in space. Of course, the capsule Calypso, named for Calypso the nymph, who kept Odysseus stranded for 7 years before he could begin his Odyssey, which makes me think Space Odyssey 2001. There's some sort of a connection here between these. But they're stuck in space. It's the Boeing Starliner. And Boeing is an epithet for snafu. It's been the entire year. So we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with this. When's it coming back? They said June 25th, June 22nd. No, they pushed it back to the end of July at the earliest. So they're staying longer. They had a number of glitches, not to mention delays. They had issues with the thrusters not firing. And then there was an incident where it was reported that there was an astronaut undergoing some kind of compression sickness distress. And then later they said, no, that was just a drill. And I'm wondering, maybe it wasn't a drill. Maybe they don't want us to know how bad things are right now in space. Okay, here's a clip here. Tom Hanks. Now, Tom Hanks, according to the QAnoners, is dead. Tom Hanks is asked if he's worried about another Trump presidency.
It feels like to be here on the 80th. It may be the last of these reunions.
If you do the math, if you were, say you were 17 years old and you were making your first trip into combat on June 6th of 1944, you would do the math, you're now 97 years old. That they're here, the first...
So they make him the face of Memorial Day or something? What is this exactly? Where are they? 80th anniversary of D-Day, that's what it is. So 80th anniversary of D-Day, marking the beginning of the end of World War II. Now they have this movie star here because he was in Saving Private Ryan. They use the movies to fill up your imagination with events as they want you to remember them. Like, the movies are our collective memory. So when you think about Pearl Harbor, you don't have any memories. You borrow them from documentaries, from war footage. But they have conflated this so much with the entertainment and the movies that, for the most part, our collective memory about these events is really through the lens of Hollywood. And that's why Tom Hanks is the person we need to listen to about D-Day, because he was there.
First thing I say to any of the veterans that I happen to meet is, don't get up, because they're more or less wheelchair bound. But there they are, resplendent in their patches and their...
Again, is he worried about a Trump presidency? Let me see if I can find what his statement is about this. But he's been made one of the top villains of the QAnon mythos. Tom Hanks is considered to be a top-level human trafficker, baby eater, Satanist. All the worst things you could imagine have been attached to Tom Hanks. Like, the QAnoners have Tom Hanks derangement syndrome. So it's interesting here that he shows up on TV. Is anybody here convinced that that guy's not real? They're always like, oh yeah, he got killed, but now they got another one with a mask on. Like, wouldn't it be easier to just not kill him than constantly have to replace people? Alright, moving on. Elephant Tusk says, don't forget Cappy. Yeah, I suspect that Isaac Cappy's not dead, and that his interaction with Hanks was meant to create this perception. I mean, it's pretty amazing if you look at the live-action role-playing game, the LARP, the alternate reality game that QAnon is. And at the very beginning of it, someone on the internet says Tom Hanks is evil. He's a serial killer. Look at his Twitter account. Look at his Instagrams. And so he has these ominous-looking Instagrams where he takes pictures of shoes left behind by children. Like, some 5-year-old's going to leave his shoe on the ground somewhere by a dumpster. And there's Tom Hanks to take a picture of it. Like, that's kind of weird. Well, there's a lot of these things. Then Isaac Cappy comes out, and he says Tom Hanks is a top baby muncher, baby eater. He's a cannibal. He's a Satanist. He's all these bad things. And he mentioned Seth Green and all these other people who supposedly have children in their basements. So Tom Hanks now is the subject of this QAnon rant. And then 42 days later, because like Tom Hanks supposedly responds, like, oh look, Tom Hanks responded to Isaac Cappy in this Instagram where he posts a bottle cap and a piece of roadkill. And he says, can it be roadkill? And he's on Route 66. So you got roadkill, a cap, and Route 66. So 42 days later, 42-year-old Isaac Cappy, who they call Cap, is found dead on Route 66. Apparently he had jumped off of a 20-foot bridge. The point of it is, this is the fulfillment of a threat. The glove, the cap. So in other words, Tom Hanks threw down the gauntlet, threw down the cap. The glove was some kind of symbol that this is a hit. And then 42 days later, Cap on Route 66. So that whole scenario, that whole story that came out, I am saying, is a construct. It's a faked death meant to lead conspiracy theorists to believe that Tom Hanks and Hollywood are indeed everything QAnon says they are. And this spread to many different celebrities who were believed to be a part of this whole thing, where they were like, look at you got Ellen DeGeneres, and she has a shirt on it with a red dot, little red smear paint, some design. And that design actually represents the face of a little girl that was ripped off of her while she was alive, and Hillary Clinton wore it while she played ping pong with Huma Abedin. Like, wow, okay, there's video of Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton wearing dead girls' faces while playing ping pong at Comet Pizza. And so these rumors spread and they get funded and they get retweeted. But no one ever verifies. And then, weirdly enough, here we are in 2024, no evidence for any of these extreme claims have emerged. And now people are like, Kamala Harris slept her way to the top. And like 8 years ago, you were accusing Democrats of eating and sacrificing children, eating their brains. And now you're talking about how this one might have engaged in some unethical behavior. Maybe adult consensual behavior. So that's a far cry from being some kind of Illuminati witch killing children. So I'm like, well, how do you go from these accusations down to these ones? It's like they toned it down, but they're equally energized to go after her because of these weak, normal, mundane claims as they were about the human sacrifice stuff. Elephant Tusk says, don't forget the face was also in the volleyball from Tom Hanks' movie Castaway. Yes, Wilson. Wilson, who kept Tom Hanks company while he was stranded on the island, was in fact an allusion to the face. And I think Castaway, though, I mean, wouldn't Castaway have come out before Huma and Hillary got together? The timing's not right, but they're saying that that is actually representative of that face. And if you go through Twitter feeds, if you find people talking about the stuff, you'll see people saying, I saw the video. They all say, I saw the video of Hillary Clinton doing this bad thing, and it was so terrible, I have nightmares. There are people who will say, I saw videos of various politicians harming children. We have lots of QAnoners who admit to having viewed what could be considered to be CP. They'll actually claim they've seen it. There are people who say, and they don't say this anymore, but they'll say, I saw what was on Hunter Biden's laptop, and it was so bad it made me throw up, and even seasoned homicide detectives cry and throw up when they see it. Well, then it finally comes out, and it's just Hunter Biden having dirty hotel parties with drugs. But there's no victims, there's no minors, there's no blood or gore or any of these things. Now, I'm bringing this up because it's been years and years since they've made these claims, and the people who believe this stuff never really explain how they stopped believing it. It's like, weren't you guys a little more, I don't know, convinced of things a few years ago? Not so urgent anymore. Nobody's talking about saving the children. Kind of funny how that works. Okay, let's move on. I believe we're mostly caught up This has mostly been a catch-up stream. Let's see if we have anybody in the caller queue. Yeah, let me go and take this call. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, caller? How are you? What topic are you calling on?
Oh, a very bizarre connection between the Kennedy family and a certain film. Before I get to that, did you hear on the 4th of July, Legoland released Lego block Jaws?
No way. So 4th of July, that's funny. Okay, I'll look that up right now.
Yep, go ahead, check it out. 4th of July, Lego unleashed Lego block Jaws.
And Jaws, yeah, I see it. Jaws set. And Jaws was, of course, a 4th of July movie. And on this last July 4th, we had a number of people who happily had
It was released June 20th. Jaws was released June 20th. June 20th of 75 was the release date.
But the story is it's a July 4th shark attack movie. It's like
Exactly. That's right. Released on June 20th, about a 4th of July. Okay, strap yourself in. This is the most mind-blowing thing I could have ever imagined. I mean, you tell me when you hear the numbers, okay? So I thought about this Lego block Jaws, and the first thought was, why associate such a macabre horror film
90
with a child's
seconds
toy, right? I mean, it sounds cute at first, but it's kind of sick in a certain way, right? You give a child, a diorama of, Lego block Jaws with the orca ship and crew and the whole bit, right? Okay, here we go. I decided to check out. Oh, before I continue.
No, actually continue. We got about we got 70 seconds, so go ahead and try to wrap up.
Here we go. Okay, ready? Here we go. Jaws and Jaws 2 were the only two Jaws franchise films that were filmed at Martha's
60
Vineyard, Cape Cod,
seconds.
which of course is the Kennedy hangout, right?
Right.
Get this. From JFK to Jaws 1, 4,229 days. From RFK's assassination to Jaws 2, 3,663 days. The official story goes that JFK got a single bullet. Well, there's the 22 in the 4229. And the story goes that RFK got 3 bullets, 3663.
Very nice.
Coincidence?
No, I don't think so.
Can you believe that?
Steven Spielberg, Metascriptor. We're going to have to look into him.
Can you believe it?
I can... Okay,
and then there are hundreds more there's hundreds more correlates. Like the tiger shark, they thought it was the right shark, but it wasn't. Who shot? Was it Harvey Oswald? He's dead, but it really wasn't him.
Very nice. Very nice information. Thank you for bringing that up. I will continue along this line here. So thank you again for the call.
And I got one about 2001 for another day. I'll call you back for 2001. I got another mind blower about that one.
Wonderful. Excellent. Appreciate it.
We'll be calling back some other time. Ciao.
Okay, great.
Bye-bye.
Now, speaking of 2001, you had AI come out. AI was a Stanley Kubrick thing that was wrapped up by Spielberg. So Spielberg, of course, let me see if I can find this. Yeah, AI, artificial intelligence. So there's a Kubrick connection here, which I think we should probably look into, because Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey, HAL 9000. In 1995, Kubrick handed AI to Spielberg, but the film did not gain momentum until Kubrick died. So we're looking at metascriptors on the world stage. Spielberg, did he have, let's see here. It was his second film, his first blockbuster. Jaws became a living nightmare. Now, on July 4th, just a few days ago, there was a shark attack, and we talked about that. The witnesses said it was just like a movie, and they all kind of laughed when they said it. Like, see this lady here, the one who's smiling? Mrs. LOL, it ate my calf. Huge smile. My leg's pretty much gone, haha. I couldn't understand why she thought it was so amusing, but I think they're getting paid big. I think it was fake. I think it was a drill. But yeah, apparently 4 people were attacked. If you believe it, I don't. I tend to think fake until proven real. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And in this case, yeah, it's believable, although unlikely and rare. But the fact that it would be perfectly aligned with a movie, a Steven Spielberg, that's the part that makes me think it's questionable. Although it could be real, sure. Okay, let's see. New Perspective says JFK is Jimmy Carter. Yeah, it depends on who you ask. These days, some believe that JFK is literally Donald Trump. Another cannibal story. Well, we've had a number of themes pop up, and the movies tend to, again, precede what happens in real life. And when I watched Civil War in the theaters, the trailer was for the new Twister movie, Twister 2024. And I thought, okay, this is going to be big this year. Hurricanes and tornadoes are going to be a thing this summer. So now we have Twisters 2024 coming, which is a standalone sequel to the 1996. So you can expect the weather to be hyped up to correspond with the movie. I'll be handing out wrenches here shortly, and yeah, we ran out of time on the phone system. I'll set it up next time so that maybe we'll take calls the second half. I'll make it work that way. Lean Dion says it probably ties to the climate change narrative and the sharks acting crazy. Yeah, you're probably right about that. They will say it's Mother Nature, it's Gaia lashing out at us, Sharknadoes. But the fake shark on the street, yeah, that's one thing. But the fake shark attacks, yeah, I think you're right. Breaking, Biden told donors on a private call, quote, "It's time to put Trump in the bullseye." And here's Biden saying something at the NATO summit. And a lot of people are hearing things in what he's saying. His voice is a little slurred. So when he says talking to your wife, it might sound like he said something else. But here's Joe Biden talking to the Secretary of NATO.
Guided this alliance through one of the most consequential periods in its history. I realize, I was talking to your wife, I personally asked you to talking to your wife.
I was talking to your wife is I think what he meant to say.
I was talking to your wife.
I wonder if they're going to go praise the digital monolith there this year like they did in 2020. They have this monolith with this digital display on all sides, and all the world leaders were gathered around this NATO monolith, and it was giving messages to them like solve climate change. Here it is. Leaders experience digital monolith at NATO. It was really strange. It was like they were worshiping this thing, and it was reading a list of expectations that it has for humanity. Here it is. Deepen political consultation. And as it's reading these things, it's like 10 Commandments, Mount Sinai, Moses coming down. And it's just saying, protect the climate. Let's see what else. So if you're watching the screen right now, you see a giant monolith, and all the world leaders, including Joe Biden, are here staring at it as it is just giving them these messages about how to, I guess, achieve some kind of one world harmony. Very strange event. And when this came out, I remember thinking this is like the new Georgia Guidestones, because the Georgia Guidestones give us guidance, but they are, or the monument which used to exist, it seemed like maybe it wasn't universal enough. Maybe they need to update it. So I looked at this digital NATO monolith as the updated Georgia Guidestones. And at the time I said, this is going to replace the stone. This is going to replace the carved in stone messages for the future. The digital monolith is the new Georgia Guidestones. I said that in 2020. And then 2 years later, the Georgia Guidestones are removed. And I think that is pretty much the case, that they are in fact the same type of messaging, but now it's, again, universal. Okay, let's see here. We've been live for a couple of hours here. Great call. Correlations between the releases of the Jaws movies and the deaths of certain Kennedys. There's some interest there for me because there's a lot of connections between Kubrick movies and Kennedy deaths. Then you have the Stephen King Shining, which has predictive programming in the movie versions for 9/11, but also allusions to JFK if you look at what Kubrick did with it. So I'm interested to see any kind of Kubrick connections between any of these big metascriptors. It's something we've been discussing lately, and this is what I want to continue to do is to focus on specific directors and what their influence is. Not just their movies, but the news events that their movies helped to foreshadow, that their movies foreshadowed and helped to condition us to accept as inevitable, real. And when we talk about metascriptors, it also includes authors, science fiction authors in particular, but there are so many of them. Leave the World Behind is one of these movies that has tons of predictive programming attached to it, so much so that even the mainstream has taken note. Of course, they just reduce it down to coincidence, but the fact is they have noted this. And it's interesting that the author of the book, Leave the World Behind, claims that his book has been described as prescient and predictive because it described 2020 pretty accurately. The lockdowns, the paranoia. So when his book came out and then 2020 happened, he made this connection. So his book was already described as prescient and predictive. Then the movie comes out and it is nothing but scene after scene of predictive programming. So we also have to look to the authors, not just the directors, but Steven Spielberg is one to look into. Lego Block Jaws, LBJ, says Rasal Haig 888. LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, someone who's been looked at as, in fact, I think maybe Roger Stone. Doesn't Roger Stone say that LBJ killed JFK in his new book? Yeah, look at this. Roger Stone, the man who killed Kennedy, the case against Lego Block Jaws, the case against LBJ. Good find. Rasal Haig 888 says Captain Quint equals JFK, Alex Kintner, RFK, Quincy Mess, Kilroy was here. Okay, I mentioned how Donald Trump exists in predictive programming. I mentioned Track Down, Back to the Future. JFK is the character Joker in Full Metal Jacket, which is Kubrick, and he's the owner of the manager of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. But his role in Full Metal Jacket's most interesting. Joker with the target on the side of his head. And I think that pertains to the 47 on the side of Trump's head. But if one Kennedy assassination is fake, they're all fake. And there's connections between all of these events. I mentioned 9/11 and the JFK assassination both being under the purview of Kubrick's body of work and his focus. He did this 9/11 event, he did the JFK thing, probably did more that we're just barely figuring out now. COVID for sure, he's a big part of that. But when we're looking back at these things, it's like, well, what are the odds that Richard Drew, AP photographer, would photograph RFK as he falls to his death? So RFK is falling, and as he's falling to his death, AP photographer Richard Drew snaps a photo. 33 years later, in 2001, same photographer is photographing the 9/11 falling man. If you look up 9/11 falling man, it's one of the most famous and iconic photos. There's even a movie about it called The Falling Man. Yeah, Richard Drew photographed this. He also photographed RFK. So you have a Kennedy death connection to 9/11 by one of these producers. Falling Man photograph taken by AP photographer Richard Drew, which is interesting for another reason as well. This photograph is now owned by Elton John. Elton John purchased it because he likes snuff. He probably has a huge collection of snuff films. One of the most perfect photographs ever taken, he said. Imagine if that was you or someone you know. Like, yeah, someone I know died. This is them dying, and Elton John thinks it's perfect and it's beautiful. It's like, okay, very, very Hannibal Lecter-ish. This photograph was widely criticized. It was described on the 12th of September as disturbing, cold-blooded, ghoulish, and sadistic. But Elton John said it's perfect. I guess two things can be true at once. And from his perspective, it's perfect because it is grotesque and sadistic and cold-blooded and disturbing. Just very strange. His identity is still unknown. A Time magazine retrospective said in 2016, unknown, but he's believed to have been an employee at Windows on the World restaurant, which sat atop the North Tower. But he became a, quote, makeshift unknown soldier. Now, we had this incident recently where a 33-year-old fell into the 9/11 reflecting pool. Now, again, Richard Drew, 1968, RFK's falling to his death. He photographs it. 33 years later, 9/11 happens. He's there for that. Man jumps into reflecting pool. The 33-year-old was arrested. He had a leg injury. And this was on the anniversary of 9/11. The incident unfolded 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Police were called. I remember I watched this video and it looked, I mean, there were a lot of witnesses. Could it have been faked? I don't know exactly. But the fact that he's 33 makes it very questionable. So I thought, well, it's probably fake. Do you all remember how on the 19th anniversary of 9/11, Derek Chauvin was on trial? Fascinating timing for that one. We should get back into reviewing 2020 and all these interesting connections and the meta script, the bigger messaging, because you had Derek Chauvin on trial and the prosecution and Benjamin Crump, and they were all wearing these masks that had 846 on it because George Floyd kneeled on 846. But at the same time, all across America, there was a moment of silence at 846. Not for Floyd, but because of 9/11, which kicked off at 846. So you see the overlapping of the various psyops and their symbolism. 9/11 kicked off at 8:46 a.m., George Floyd 8:46, sunset 8:46 that day. And then you have this number on this day where this person who was involved in a 9/11ing of America is on trial again. No coincidences. All right, this has been great. We'll probably continue this conversation in Discord. And if you want to be involved in the upcoming ISS transit viewings, go to our Discord server and enter the room. It says ISS viewing. What we're doing there is we are going to get 10, 15, 20 or more live witnesses for the 20th to the 23rd. Just people who can vouch for something being in the sky or not, but we're all going to agree in advance to the same standard of evidence. And I think that this will advance the conversation a few steps. Russell Haig 888 says the tiger shark in Jaws had a Louisiana license plate in its gut. Oswald is from Louisiana. Skyfish says, does anybody remember the rash of shark attacks in the summer leading up to 9/11? Summer of the Shark. I didn't hear about this. Summer of the Shark. Shark attacks covered by American news media this summer 2001. So what does this mean? What are we seeing here? Is this some kind of some sort of foreshadowing? This is interesting here. The sensationalist coverage of shark attacks started in July following the 4th of July weekend shark attack on 8-year-old Jesse Arbogast and continued unabated despite no evidence for actual increases in shark attacks until the 9/11 attacks shifted the media attention away from the beaches. Well, thank goodness. Thank goodness for 9/11, because the media was not going to stop with their non-stop sensationalist coverage of non-existent shark attacks. No, instead we can focus on a fake terror attack. But no, there might be something to it. There might be some kind of buildup. Like, the Jaws is all about tension. In fact, that Jaws theme song that plays when you see sharks, you see a shark and in your head you hear that song. I think it's actually called tension. So they're building up tension. And I think this might even correlate in some way to the submarine attack. I think it's like Hunt for Red October. Some kind of sea attack seems to be kind of a theme here. But yeah, I would posit there might be something to it. Foreshadowing, mood building. The Summer of the Shark has been remembered as an example of tabloid television, perpetuating stories with no merit beyond the ability to draw ratings. Interesting. In other words, never let facts get in the way of a good narrative. That's one of their operating premises. They're always like, if it leads, it bleeds. That's pretty much been standard forever, and it is tabloid media. But it was never not tabloid. Fascinating, though. Summer of the Shark. So are we perhaps seeing some kind of similar, is that a sign? Increase in shark attacks and the hype? And Donald Trump has been noted publicly for saying some very weird things about being terrified of sharks. Here's an example. Donald Trump rambles about sharks. He talks about how much he hates sharks, deranged rant. Opinion, what is Trump's shark story really about? What's going on in Trump's mind? His story about hypothetically being electrocuted is a glimpse into a mind that is unwell. He had suggested he would rather be electrocuted in an electric boat than be eaten by sharks. Before a Las Vegas crowd, and this is June 12th, gathered in a sweltering 105-degree heat, he delivered a jittery parable about sharks. And this was leaked by Stormy Daniels, who said back when they were together, he was talking about how much he hates sharks and wouldn't care if they were all killed. Trump reveals he'd rather be electrocuted than be killed by a shark. Let me play this if you haven't heard it yet. Here's just a short bit of it. And this could be a script. Maybe he's got to throw the meme out there. Talk about sharks.
Because of MIT, my relationship to MIT, very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said.
So he's ranting about shark attacks. Salty Siren says, I Pet Goat 2 has a shark drawn on the chalkboard. Okay, there's got to be a deeper meaning here then.
So there's
maybe it's a Kraken reference. It could easily be a Kraken reference.
Shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted, or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
Nobody's ever asked me that either, but what he affirms here is that he would rather be electrocuted underwater in a sinking EV boat than get eaten by a shark.
I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time.
Pippi Langstruff says, I Pet Shark. And Salty, oh, good call. Jaws 4/7, July 4th. 4th of July. And, okay, July 4th, 2 years ago, we had Robert Cremo with the 4/7 on his head shooting up the 4th of July parade with a Lee Harvey Oswald poster on his wall. And he had a propensity for visiting Trump rallies dressed up like Where's Waldo? So why is there a sniper at a Trump rally who loves Oswald Highland Park shooter. Highland Park, Parkland High, JFK taken to Parkland Hospital. All kinds of fascinating connections here, but yeah, you're right about that. Jaws, 4774. There's a connection.
I'm not getting near the shore. So we're going to end that. We're going to end it for boats. We're going to end it for trucks. The truck.
So there was Trump's shark rant, which again, I think it could be something scripted. Okay, it's been great. I appreciate all of the comments. We'll continue this conversation very soon. So much to cover. I'm working on the QDoc, and that's my next priority. The ISS thing we're going to do later this month, but we have about 10 days to gather our witnesses. So again, if you want to be a witness to the alleged ISS, go to the Discord server, click the link, and we'll provide you a list of criteria for what we will accept, the rules of evidence, what we won't accept, and then we'll be engaged in a number of impromptu conversations leading up to it as we clarify our MO, how we're going to actually approach this, and what we expect out of it. This is Autohoaxology by Symbia. Yeah, Elephantus called it. This is a hilarious Nevermind album cover reference with the penguin chasing the Autohoaxology 101 book instead of the baby going after the money. Again, this is Symbia Autohoaxology. I'm going to put a link below. Let's look at a few reviews of this track really quick here. Nirvana-esque album cover art is great. Brilliant. Autohoaxology has been on rotation all day long. This and COVID Cuties. Excellent. I like how much you got your own recognizable style, says Uncool Ben. Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworm says Symbia is my favorite. Infinite Jack, good stuff. Anyway, I put a link below if you want to check out this video for yourself and bookmark it. See you all tomorrow.
I don't live in truth or vil. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, Autohoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind day. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I've stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading